Hi, I'm Elisa. Welcome to my channel, STEM with Me. And I just wanted to give you guys a quick intro to me and to my channel so that you kind of know what it's all about. Now, I'm an autistic adult, which means I have an autism spectrum disorder. And that's one of the reasons I decided to make this channel is because stimming is something that's very common and very commonly talked about in autistic people. And part of the reason that I wanted to do this is because a lot of the kind of sensory tools, resources out there are really geared towards like early child education and things like that. So I kind of really wanted to make a channel that was open to everyone, adults, kids, babies, people of all different kinds. Before I really get started with creating content for this channel, I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to what it's about. Now you've noticed it's called STEM with Me. So you might be wondering what exactly stimming is, or what is a stim. A stim is basically any action or activity or behavior, whatever you want to call it. Often it's repetitive in nature, which seeks a certain form of sensory input for the purpose of regulating one's ability to interact with one's environment, regulating one's emotions, even expressing oneself, or of course, just having fun. Now, the term itself is short for self-stimulation. It's been shortened to stimming because self-stimulation sounds kind of really clinical, really medical, so a lot of people just call it stimming. Who stims? Essentially, everybody. Now, the term stimming itself is typically applied to people who have certain neurotypes, and neurotype is kind of a fancy word for the way your brain is made, basically how you're wired. Some of these neurotypes include autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, SPD, which is short for sensory processing disorder, even some physical issues like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome can contribute to things like sensory overload, which can lead to a need to stim. So I'm going to give you a couple of resources down in the description box, some links for you to check out so that you can do a little bit more reading on the matter for yourself. But ultimately, the point is that everyone seeks sensory input at times and in some ways. It's perfectly normal to stim, and in fact, for many people, it's actually completely necessary and completely healthy. You might notice that when a neurotypical person, that basically means a person without a cognitive disorder, jiggles their leg, say, you might notice that that's typically called fidgeting, or it's called a nervous habit, or just even a habit. But if an autistic person does it, suddenly it's a symptom. And somehow that's really bad. Obviously, I don't agree with the view that stimming is unhealthy. I wouldn't have made an entire YouTube channel about it if I did. So stimming can be absolutely essential to people with autism, SPD, etc., other cognitive disorders. So, the aim of my YouTube channel is essentially to kind of normalize this, take some of the fear out of it, kind of take some of the mystery out of it. So, what are some reasons why people stim? And this can be anybody from, somebody who is autistic, to somebody with no neurological disorders at all, to someone with anxiety, or any number of people will stim for any number of reasons. And some of those reasons can be because they're hypersensitive to sensory input. So basically what that means is that the input is processed in such a way that it feels very overwhelming. So something that would be a hypersensitivity would be like a lot of lamps are too bright for my eye. There's also hyposensitivity, which is essentially the opposite. It's essentially your body is not necessarily processing these sensations fully, so you can have a hyposensitivity to pain. You'll occasionally hear about someone who has essentially broken their arm and not even noticed. You can be hyposensitive to proprioceptive input. That basically means just knowing where your body ends and other things begin. Can make you kind of walk into walls. It can make driving a little bit difficult. So you might stim to basically offset that or to gain input in whatever sense is not receiving the information the way that you want it to. It can be really important for concentration and focus, especially for kids with things like ADHD. It can be incredibly important for them to have something to do with their hands, or else they essentially just cannot learn. And this applies to other senses as well. It can be useful for emotional regulation. You might notice that, touching something soft, maybe petting your cat, is very calming. It can be even for self-expression. If you explore the autistic community a little bit, you'll notice that people will talk about things like their happy stims or their anxious stims. And these are things that they'll do when they're experiencing a certain emotion. And it's essentially a part of our body language. So it's a part of how we express ourselves in addition to how we regulate how we interact with the environment. It can also just be fun. Stimming can be really enjoyable. Petting your cat just feels nice. It doesn't have to serve a purpose. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. So, what should you do if you see someone stimming? Now, for the most part, if you see someone jiggling their leg, it's not really going to cause you to look twice. Everybody does that. But if you see someone stimming in what seems to be like a really obvious way to you, what should you do? Leave them alone. Do not draw undue attention to their stims. They have probably been told 1,000 times that it looks weird or they shouldn't be doing it. And do not, absolutely do not try to stop someone from stimming. It's incredibly invasive and incredibly rude. Please do not try to help someone with their stims unless they specifically ask you to. But what if it makes them look weird or, autistic or disabled or any other word that you want to fill in there? Most stimming is completely harmless and healthy, and it is a legitimate need for a lot of people. The idea that looking strange or disabled or autistic is bad or embarrassing is essentially based on the idea that a different brain wiring structure is inherently worse than the typical one. And obviously, I don't really agree with that. So, again, just let them be. Essentially, to kind of bundle it all up into a useful little package of information, the purpose of this channel is essentially to demystify stimming and sensory behaviors, to kind of open them up to all different sorts of people, autistic people, people with ADHD, people with other disabilities, even neurotypical people, children, adults. Whoever wants to join in is more than welcome to watch this channel, learn, and play. So I just want to kind of normalize stimming and kind of allow people to see the joy of healthy stimming, the fact that it's normal, it's healthy, it's fun, and provide lots of fun and useful sensory experiences and activities. I might do some product reviews, I might do some Pinterest type recipes for sensory activities, all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned and let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. If you want me to go into anything in a lot more detail, I could potentially do a future video on that, or really anything else you'd be interested in seeing. Thanks for watching, bye-bye, and happy stimming!